My sister once threatened to have me removed from the house if I did not leave her room at 3 a.m. That was before the day she contacted me with a secret. Until I was 9, my parents were affectionate toward me. That changed after I was diagnosed with high-functioning autism. They decided they had been too permissive and responded by becoming much stricter. Sarah, my older sister, stood up for me for years. She secretly brought me food at night when my parents reduced my meals to a quarter of what I needed. She comforted me when I cried, as my parents shouted at me to fight my autism. On many days, she was the reason I stayed alive. When I was 16 and she was 17, she pulled away from me. One night, when I went into her room at 3 a.m. just to talk, she warned me that she would tell our father to throw me out if I did not leave. There were times when I became overstimulated and rubbed my thumb against my cheek. Sarah used to sit beside me and hold my hand, but instead, she ran to our parents and told them I was doing it again, knowing I would be punished. After that, I felt empty and disconnected. I spent my days emotionally numb. When I felt myself coming back, I forced myself to shut down again. I focused on finishing school and leaving, especially since Sarah was still at home. My parents paid for my college. They insisted on it. I assumed they wanted me gone, and I did not argue. I saw it as a win. On my second night in the dorm, I received a text. It was from Sarah. She wrote, "Don't reply. Please pick me up and take me to your dorm at 5 p.m. on Saturday. Don't tell our parents I'm sorry. I love you." My hands shook as I read it. She wanted to see me. She wanted to be my sister again. I could not sleep that night. Memories kept replaying in my head. Even when I remembered her laughing while I was being punished or telling our parents to push the autism out of me faster, I still felt gratitude. She had tried, in her own way, to give me a childhood. I felt like I owed her. On Sunday, I picked her up. She told me to drive faster. Once she got into the car, she hid on the floor of the back seat and stayed silent until we reached the dorm. When we arrived, she finally broke down. I helped her through an anxiety attack, just as she had helped me years before. After about 45 minutes, she spoke. She said she never meant to hurt me and claimed she thought it was a joke at first. Then she asked if I remembered her 17th birthday. I nodded. That was the day our father had driven me far away and left me in a field so I would not ruin the celebration. She said his name, and her eyes filled with tears. My stomach dropped. She told me he had assaulted her. I held her and rubbed her back, realizing our father had taken her innocence. She apologized over and over. She explained that he told her talking to me would make her ugly and that my autism would spread to her. He threatened that if he caught her, he would hurt me too. Suddenly, everything made sense, and I felt ashamed for ever resenting her. Our mother knew what was happening and chose to ignore it. When I asked whether they knew where Sarah was, she said they did not care. That was a relief, since my dorm was far from campus and unknown to them. I told Sarah I loved her and promised to keep her safe. She did not know that I intended to hold our parents accountable. The next morning, Sarah woke me in a panic. She said Tom had texted her. Our parents were claiming she was mentally unstable and had imagined everything. I checked my phone and saw messages from him as well. Other relatives were being asked to help find her. My stomach sank. Our parents knew how to present themselves as concerned caregivers. Sarah asked what would happen if people believed them. I reminded her that we had evidence. She began pacing, chewing her nail like she did when we were younger. She was convinced they would track her phone. I assured her she was safe, even though I was anxious myself. I texted Tom only to say that Sarah was safe. We decided not to tell anyone else where we were. That day, we skipped the dining hall. I bought food from a nearby convenience store instead. When I returned, Sarah had moved my desk in front of the door as a precaution. We spent the day reacting to every sound in the hallway. Each time footsteps passed, Sarah froze, but it was always just other students. By evening, we were exhausted, so I suggested watching a light comedy on my laptop. For a while, things felt almost normal, and Sarah laughed. Around midnight, I received an email reply to one of the anonymous messages I had sent from a burner account. It was from our father's company. They requested a victim statement for an internal investigation. I showed it to Sarah. She stared at the screen for a long time and said that writing it would make everything real. She acknowledged that what happened mattered and that he deserved consequences. She agreed to do it, but asked for a day to write everything down. The next day, she spent hours typing while I worked on overdue assignments. Occasionally, she asked if I remembered dates or incidents. I helped where I could, but some events happened when I was not there. During a break, I checked our parents' social media. Our mother had posted a tearful message asking for help finding Sarah, claiming she was ill and needed care. The supportive comments made me feel sick. The same woman who ignored years of abuse was now presenting herself as a grieving parent, and people believed it. That night, Sarah finished her statement and asked me to read it. It was clear, detailed, and painful. She described the assault on her birthday and years of inappropriate behavior. She asked if she should remove anything. I hugged her and told her it was her story. She sent the statement, along with some of our evidence, to HR. Afterward, she closed the laptop and lay down, completely drained. The following morning, the company replied, thanking us and stating the matter would be treated seriously and confidentially. They also explained they were legally required to report certain forms of abuse to authorities. That frightened Sarah. I tried to reassure her, suggesting it was standard language and that authorities would still need to locate us. It helped somewhat, but she remained uneasy. We agreed to take additional precautions. Instead of going to the dining hall or nearby store, I asked my friend Lily to bring us food. She had been messaging me all week, asking where I was, but I only told her I was dealing with family issues. When I called and asked if she could pick up groceries, she agreed right away. She asked if I was in trouble. When she arrived with the food, she noticed Sarah hiding in the bathroom. I told her it was complicated and promised to explain later. I asked her not to tell anyone where I was or that my sister was with me. Lily nodded, clearly nervous, and said she would help however she could. After she left, Sarah came out and asked if we could trust her. I told her Lily was reliable and would not say anything. That weekend, John's company emailed us again. They informed us that he had been terminated immediately and thanked us for reporting the situation. Sarah and I celebrated quietly. It felt like the first genuine victory. Later that same day, I received a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. When I listened to it, my hands shook. It was John. He said he knew Sarah was with me and claimed our actions had gone too far. He accused us of lying, said we had ruined his career, and stated that our mother was devastated. He warned that if Sarah was not returned home by Monday, they would report her missing. His tone was calm and controlled, the same voice he used with neighbors and teachers. That composure had convinced people for years. What unsettled me most was that he sounded confident, as if he already knew where we were. I deleted the message without telling Sarah, but the threat stayed with me. A missing person report could bring law enforcement to her. That night, after Sarah fell asleep, I contacted the campus legal aid office. I described the situation as if it involved a friend and her younger sister. The law student explained that, in our state, a minor could apply for emancipation under certain conditions. The next morning, I explained emancipation to Sarah. She was interested but anxious. She asked whether she would have to go to court or see our parents again. I told her it was possible, but that she would have legal representation and evidence. She spent the day thinking it over and decided to move forward. I reminded her she was not alone. The following day, we went together to the legal aid office. Sarah had not left the dorm in over a week. She wore a hoodie pulled low and kept scanning the area as we crossed campus. David, a calm and supportive law student, outlined the emancipation requirements. Sarah would need to show financial support, a safe place to live, and that emancipation was necessary due to abuse. When asked if she had income or savings, she said no. David asked whether relatives could help. Most of our extended family had previously sided with our parents, but I mentioned that an aunt in Colorado had always been concerned. She had sent money cards that our parents kept from us. David suggested contacting her and collecting more proof, such as medical records and school documentation. I agreed, though I was distracted by a car in the parking lot that looked like John's. It was likely nothing, but it made me uneasy. When we returned to the dorm, There was a note taped to the door. For a moment, I panicked, thinking our parents had found us. Instead, it was a reminder from the RA about a fire drill. Sarah immediately began searching for our aunt's contact details. She remembered a large argument between our mother and Aunt Jessica years earlier. After some time, she found her on social media. We sent a careful message asking if we could speak with her about a family matter. Within an hour, she replied with her phone number and said she had been worried about us for years. We looked at each other, surprised. I put the call on speaker. Aunt Jessica recognized us immediately and asked if we were safe. She mentioned seeing concerning posts from our mother. We took turns explaining the abuse, Sarah's escape, and our plan. She listened quietly, occasionally reacting with concern. After a pause, she said she had always noticed signs and had once contacted child services, but without evidence, nothing was done. She said our parents had convinced authorities that everything was fine. I asked if she would support Sarah's emancipation financially. She agreed without hesitation and even offered to let Sarah live with her in Colorado. Sarah was shocked and relieved. Aunt Jessica said I would be welcome too during breaks. After the call, Sarah was visibly lighter. For the first time since everything began, it felt like we had real support. I told her it was a good start, though emancipation could take time. She said that knowing there was an end point changed everything. That Friday, we returned to legal aid. David helped us begin the paperwork, and Aunt Jessica joined by phone to provide a formal statement of support. Things were progressing well until I checked my email that night. I had received an academic probation warning. I had missed so many classes and assignments that I was at risk of failing the semester and losing my scholarship. Without it, I would be forced to return home. I stared at the message, realizing I had neglected my own situation while focusing on Sarah. She noticed my reaction and asked what was wrong. After reading the email, she said she could not stay without emancipation either. We sat quietly, considering the implications. She told me I needed to return to class and said she would be safe alone in the dorm. I resisted at first, worried they might find her, but she pointed out they did not know our location and that she would not open the door for anyone else. Reluctantly, I agreed. The next morning, I went back to class. It felt strange to re-enter normal campus life, hearing conversations about parties and assignments while our situation felt far more serious. I explained my family emergency to my professors, and most granted extensions. By the end of the day, catching up seemed possible. When I returned, Sarah was safe. She had spent the day researching emancipation cases and organizing evidence. She showed me her notes, which included dates and journal entries. I praised her work and realized how rarely she must have received encouragement growing up. Over the following days, I attended classes and worked on assignments while Sarah stayed in the dorm preparing her case and coordinating with Aunt Jessica and David. In the evenings, we compared notes and planned next steps. Eventually, I noticed an email from our mother that I had not opened. The subject line read, "Please read." Against my better judgment, I opened it. She claimed Sarah was unstable and making things up, accused her of seeking attention, and insisted our father was devastated by the accusations. She reminded me of everything they had provided for us and questioned how I could believe such claims. The message ended abruptly, reinforcing the pressure they were trying to apply. "College, we gave you everything. We can put this behind us if you bring Sarah home. No one will be angry. All we want is family unity. Emily, please do the right thing." I read the email 3 times, feeling sick each time. Without their constant presence, the manipulation was obvious. I showed the message to Sarah. Her hand shook as she read it. "She's lying," Sarah said quietly. "You know she's lying, right?" "Of course I know," I replied. "I saw what they did to us." Still, Sarah was unsettled for the rest of the day. The next morning, I woke up to find her sitting at my desk, staring at my laptop. I asked what she was doing. She told me our mother had emailed her too. Rachel claimed stress was causing Dad's heart problems, and that it would be Sarah's fault if he died. I got out of bed and read the email. It was even more manipulative than the one sent to me. "Don't listen to her," I said. "Dad's heart is fine. They're trying to scare you into coming back." Sarah nodded, unsure. "What if he really is sick?" "Even if he were," I said firmly, None of this would be your fault. She closed the laptop and rubbed her eyes. She admitted she understood logically, but emotionally, years of conditioning made her feel responsible for everything. I understood that feeling. I had spent years thinking that if I were different or less autistic, things might have been better. We need to block their emails, I said. They're trying to get into our heads. Sarah agreed, and we filtered their messages into a folder we wouldn't see. That afternoon, I met with my academic advisor. He was concerned about my absences but supported my plan to catch up. As I left his office, Sarah texted me, "Someone's knocking on the door. I'm not answering." I immediately replied, "Good, keep it closed. I'm coming." My heart raced as I hurried back to the dorm, wondering if they had found us. The hallway was empty when I arrived. Inside, Sarah was sitting on the bed. She said someone had knocked for several minutes and then slipped a paper under the door. I unfolded it, bracing myself. It was a notice from the RA about a mandatory floor meeting that night. I let out a breath of relief. "It's just dorm stuff," I said. "Nothing to worry about." Sarah nodded but admitted she had been convinced it was our parents. I reminded her that access to the building required a student ID. She leaned against me, still tense. I recognized that fear well. That evening, I attended the floor meeting while Sarah stayed locked inside the room. It covered routine topics like quiet hours, activities, and a recent theft. Nothing serious. When I returned, Sarah was on the phone with Aunt Jessica, talking about schools, hobbies, and what life in Colorado might look like. Hearing her sound hopeful felt reassuring. Later, while I worked on homework and Sarah organized evidence, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know where you both are. This ends now." My blood ran cold. I showed Sarah. Her face went pale. "He has your new number," she said. "How does he know where we are?" I tried to stay calm, suggesting he was bluffing, but I wasn't fully convinced. John had always been skilled at intimidation. Sarah said we needed to leave immediately. I asked her to wait and think. Panic could put us at risk, but she raised a valid concern. If police were involved, things could escalate quickly. I suggested calling David from legal aid. Even though it was late, he answered. I explained everything. David advised us not to respond to the message. Engaging could confirm our location. If John truly knew where we were, he still couldn't force Sarah to return without law enforcement. If police became involved, we should present our evidence. Sarah said she didn't want to speak to police. David reassured her he would be there if needed. After the call, Sarah calmed down. We decided to stay but prepare. We spent the next hour gathering essential documents and evidence in case we needed to leave quickly. No further messages came that night. The next morning, as I was getting ready for class, my phone rang from another unknown number. I answered. John's voice came through calmly. "Hello, Emily. I'm on campus. We need to talk." I hung up and told Sarah he was there. She started to hyperventilate. I reminded her he didn't know our building and that there were many dorms. I then called Lily and asked if we could stay at her apartment for a few days. She agreed immediately. She lived off campus with her roommate, Sophie. It wasn't ideal, but it felt safer. We packed essentials and evidence and waited until most students were in class before leaving. We reached Lily's apartment without incident. She had left a key under the mat. After locking the door, we collapsed on the couch, exhausted. Sarah asked quietly whether he would be arrested. I said I didn't know. We jumped at every sound that day. When Lily returned from class, she saw our expressions and asked what was happening. We explained enough for her to understand why we were hiding. She listened without interrupting and then told us we could stay as long as needed. If anyone came looking, she said she had never seen us before. Her support overwhelmed me. That night, we talked late with Lily and Sophie. They offered advice and support. For the first time in weeks, it felt like we had people on our side. The next morning, David called. He told us our father had been arrested based on the company's report and our evidence. I looked at Sarah in disbelief. David confirmed the charges included child sexual assault. A bail hearing was scheduled for the next day, and a restraining order was automatic. Sarah cried after the call, overwhelmed with relief. I held her and reminded her that people believed us. The following day, David called again. Bail was set at $200,000. Our mother was trying to raise the money, but John remained in jail. Even if he made bail, the restraining order would stand. John stayed in custody for a week. Few relatives were willing to help Rachel. Sarah's emancipation hearing was scheduled for the following week, and David was confident it would be approved. Afterward, Sarah could legally move to Colorado with Aunt Jessica. Things finally seemed stable, until I received a text from Sarah during class. "Mom is outside the dorm. She's crying and causing a scene." I gathered my things and ran across campus, hoping Sarah had locked the door. I arrived at the dorm to find a small crowd gathered outside. My mother stood in the middle, crying loudly about her sick daughter who needed to come home. Campus security was trying to calm her. I pushed through the group, angry. "Why are you here?" I asked. Rachel turned toward me, her expression shifting instantly from distress to calculated concern. "Thank goodness, Emily," she said. "Help me get your sister. Her health is failing. She needs to come home so I can take care of her." She sounded convincing, but I knew better. "Sarah has a restraining order against you," I said clearly. "You're not allowed anywhere near her." Rachel's face tightened for a moment before the tears returned. She said it was all a misunderstanding, insisted Dad had never hurt anyone, and claimed Sarah was confused and lying. "Stop," I said firmly. "Everyone knows the truth now. He's in jail." Campus security stepped between us. An officer told Rachel she needed to leave university property and warned that violating a restraining order could result in arrest. As she was escorted away, she looked back at me and said this wasn't over. I rushed upstairs to the dorm room where Sarah was sitting on the bed, shaking. "Is she gone?" she asked. I told her security had taken Rachel away and asked if she was okay. She nodded, but she was clearly shaken. She told me our mother had been screaming her name, saying she was sick and confused, while people recorded on their phones. The public scene was the last thing we needed. "She can't hurt you," I said. "Your emancipation hearing is next week, and the restraining order protects you. After that, you'll be legally free." Sarah took a deep breath but admitted that seeing Rachel like that scared her. She worried people might believe her. I reassured her, though I knew how convincing Rachel could be when playing the victim. That night, videos of Rachel's outburst spread across campus social media. Most comments criticized her behavior, but a few questioned Sarah's credibility. That made my anger spike. Even now, some people still sided with our abusers. The next day, I was called to the Dean of Students' office. I feared I was in trouble, but Dean Patterson was understanding. She told me the university was aware of the situation and supported both me and Sarah. Campus security would stay alert, and academic accommodations were available if needed. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. I asked if we could move to a single room since my roommate was returning and Sarah needed privacy to recover. Dean Patterson agreed to check availability. By the end of the day, we were approved to move into a small single room in a quieter dorm. It wasn't larger, but it was private, and it was ours. The day of Sarah's emancipation hearing arrived quickly. She wore a borrowed shirt from Lily, and I wore the only dress pants I owned. David met us at the courthouse and said everything was in order. With the criminal charges against our father and the restraining order already in place, he didn't expect problems. Rachel was allowed to attend as Sarah's legal guardian despite the restraining order. She dressed modestly, appearing calm and composed. She muttered that Sarah would try to stop everything. I replied quietly that she wouldn't succeed. The hearing was brief. The judge reviewed the documents and asked Sarah about her school plans and where she would live. Aunt Jessica testified by video, confirming she would provide housing and support. Rachel then spoke, saying Sarah was difficult, easily influenced, and emotionally unstable, and that her husband was innocent. The judge interrupted her. He referenced the police reports and confirmed that her husband was in custody for serious abuse charges. He noted reports from Sarah's teachers describing trauma-related behavior and said he found Sarah's evidence and medical records credible. When Rachel denied everything again, the judge warned her that denying documented abuse could harm her further. After a few final questions, the judge issued his ruling. Emancipation was in Sarah's best interest. The petition was approved, effective immediately. Sarah cried as I held her. She was legally free. Outside the courthouse, Rachel approached us, pleading with Sarah. David stepped between them and reminded her of the restraining order. She left angry, repeating that this wasn't over, but her words no longer held power. John was in jail and Sarah was free. We celebrated that night with pizza and ice cream in our new dorm room. Sarah kept smiling and said she still couldn't believe it. I reminded her that in 3 weeks, she would be in Colorado with Aunt Jessica, starting fresh. She said she would miss me. I told her we'd talk often and visit during breaks. She asked me to promise. I did. The next 3 weeks passed quickly. Sarah packed her things and we planned her move. Aunt Jessica had enrolled her in a new high school and prepared her room. Detective Parker updated us regularly. The case against John was expanding, and Rachel was now under investigation for child endangerment and failure to report abuse. The day before Sarah left, a letter arrived addressed to her. It was from Rachel. Inside was a short message blaming us for destroying the family and telling us never to contact them again. After reading it, Sarah handed it to me. I told her they had ruined the family, not us, and threw it away. I drove Sarah to the airport the next day. We hugged tightly at security. She thanked me for believing her and helping her. I told her that's what sisters do. Watching her walk away, I felt both sadness for what we'd lost and hope for what lay ahead. On the drive back to campus, I reflected on everything we'd survived. Years of fear and pain, but also strength, support, and justice. Our parents had tried to break us, but they failed. We had endured. As I parked on campus, I felt lighter than I had in years. Classes, friends, and a future without fear waited ahead. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to hide who I was. I could simply be myself. Sarah texted me from the airport, saying she was through security and boarding soon. I told her to call when she landed. That night, alone in my dorm room, I felt relief, pride, sadness, and hope all at once. Sarah was safe. We had stood up for ourselves. The worst was behind us. I opened my laptop and began writing an essay on resilience for my psychology class, aware of the irony. Our story wasn't only about abuse. It was about finding our voices, recognizing our value, and holding on to love despite everything.